So I'm going to teach you guys how to make this Swedish woven heart from 2 watercolor papers, 4-inch wide watercolor papers. We'll need pencil, ruler, scissors, compass, and a little bit of tape to finish it off. You will only have little scraps left over for the half circle, semicircle that we cut off. But this is how to make a woven heart. So I've gone ahead and let my watercolor paper dry, and I've also cut this into 4-inch wide strips. This is going to be enough paper to make 2 hearts. So I'll have a set from 2 sheets and another set to do another sheet, or I could save the paper for something else. And what you're going to see is the directions to make a more complicated woven heart with 1/2-inch wide strips. You could simplify this down. This is 2 centimeter wide strips, and I have only 5 pieces woven where I have 8 here. So this is easier, but also less interesting looking. So I'm going to show this kind of more complicated way. You're going to need a pair of scissors to make your cuts, a ruler to make several measurements here. I've cut on my lines, but several measurements on the back, pencil, of course, to draw, and then a compass. This is going to help you make the perfect kind of arching semicircle here at the top of my papers. So let's start with just 1 sheet of paper and a ruler. You're going to flip it over and work on the back. And we need to find 5 inches up from the bottom of the paper. And this is going to get cut down, so if you have a favorite, maybe consider that. But we're going to just need to find 5 inches up from the bottom of the paper. So I'm just going to come up here along the side to make sure my ruler is not wonky, and put the 5 across the bottom, and I'm going to mark up here at the 0. So not the edge of the ruler, but the 0 right there. And I'm going to do the same thing on my other side of my paper. So looking for my 5 inches up from the bottom, make a mark there at the 0 as well. And then now I'm going to set my ruler, and it's going to go from dot to dot. And then I'm also going to go from 0 to 4. So I need to center up my paper. I'm looking for the 2 inches. So again, where you set your ruler is the dots need to be right above the top of your ruler. And then your ruler needs to go between 0 and 4 inches. I'm going to make a little dot at 2 inches. So it's now 5 inches up from my paper and halfway across that 4 inch at 2 inches. Now I need to set up my compass. So this is a compass, different than a compass that tells you which direction you're going. And they have a little red thing here that's going to pull the point out. When this closes, it retracts back in. So you just will pull it out and open because this thing hits and it slides back in for safety. But I'm just going to need to slide that out. And I need to set the distance from my point and my pencil to 2 inches. So using also my ruler, I'm going to look for the point to the pencil. I'm just going to kind of pull this apart or squeeze it in and adjust it till I have this as close to 2 inches as I can. And then wherever that dot is, that's going to be where I put my point down. And this should go right along the edge of the paper. And I'm up here at the top of my paper. I'm just going to swing this all the way around. You can even rotate your paper like this. I'm going to do the same thing now on my other sheet of paper. So I'm just going to keep my ruler set to, or my compass set to 2 inches, and just going to set that aside. And we're going to do the same thing on this other sheet of paper. So I'm on the back. I find 5 inches up. My 5 is here at the bottom. My ruler is staying parallel to the edge of the paper, and I'm marking at 0 inches. Same thing on the other side. Then my ruler is going to go right below those dots, and I'm centering my ruler between 0 and 4 inches. The 2 dots are right here above my ruler, and I'm marking at 2. Then I take my compass that's still set to 2 inches. I'm going to put a dot, I'm going to put the center of the compass right here on my dot, and I'm going to slide this around on the top like this. So I have that the same on both of my sheets of paper. We're done with the compass, done with the ruler and pencil for a minute. And we need our scissors. With the scissors, we're going to cut the scrap, the top of the heart away. So we're just going to cut right along this line. So I need my ruler and my pencil again to put some vertical lines. The vertical lines are going to be every 1/2 inch apart, and they're going to be 4.5 inches tall. So we're going to set that up. I'm going to put my ruler towards the bottom here between the 0 and 4. And if you go too low, you can't see your numbers. So you want it kind of just above where you can see your measurements on your ruler with this black table underneath me here. And I have, again, my 0 and my 4. I'm going to mark at a 1/2 inch. 1, 1.5, 2, every 1/2 inch. You should end at 3.5, and then we have 4 next to it. And now I'm going to come up here towards the top of my paper and do the same measurements. So you got to make sure this is nice and kind of even. I'm not going up too high where it's getting circular. I'm just kind of staying down just a bit, and I'm going to mark again every 1/2 inch. I'm going to do the same thing to my other sheet of paper. Ruler parallel to the bottom between the 0 and 4, marking every 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to connect my top and bottom dot, and I want this line to be about 4.5 inches long. So it kind of depends on where you put those dots. You can't really go by that. I'm looking at my 4 and my 1/2, 4.5, half between 4 and 5. I'm going from dot to dot and the 0, and sliding that down. And what if you make some too long, too short, you can always go back and erase or set yourself up. You can, set yourself up some other kinds of lines. But with my 4.5 here at the bottom, my dot, I'm starting at the 0, going all the way down all of these lines. And if your lines are kind of messy, it's hard to tell, some are going up, some are going down, then you could always measure 4.5 inches up on 2 opposite sides, connect those with a straight line, and then just know not to cut above that line. So I'll go ahead and do that to both just to keep it nice and even. Again, it's 4.5 inches up from the bottom. Make a dot on the left and the right. Connect it with a straight line and don't cut past that horizontal line. My next step before I can start weaving is just to cut. So I'm going to cut from the bottom up and stopping at 4.5 inches up from the bottom. So the paper is 4 inches wide, and so the cuts you just made are a little extra long. Don't expect to weave all the way up to here. That just gives you a little bit of room that makes it a little bit easier when you're weaving. So we gave you an extra 1/2 inch worth of cut. It's not going to slide all the way up. It's going to be down, trying to keep this the most even 90-degree angle. So I'm going to show you guys now how to weave your two shapes together. Main goal is to create a checkerboard pattern, alternating whether you're going over, under, over. And then also getting the bottom corner to complete a good kind of right angle here, where you have your completely vertical and horizontal piece meeting together. So I'm going to show you guys a couple tips on that. It took me actually watching some of my students to do this correctly for me to really kind of grasp it. So this is thanks to my kids that figured out a really good way to weave this together compared to what I was doing. The only thing I'll need at this point then is some tape, masking tape or Scotch tape. So when I was first trying this, I was trying to like start here and work my way up, and it's really hard to move this paper. So what I was watching my kids do, which makes a lot of sense, is I'm right-handed, so if you're left, you may need to flip this a different direction. I don't know how it'd work that way, but I'm gonna put my piece here on the bottom and then this other piece on the top. So kind of arrange them this way. And then I'm gonna keep all these pieces under. I'm gonna pull out one piece at a time. So we made these cuts about a 1/2 inch too long so that this can kind of stretch out a little bit, but you're not trying to weave these all the way up to the top, because then you have these pieces hanging off the edge. You're trying to really keep it at a 90-degree angle with just a little bit of give room. And I'm gonna pull out my top piece here, and then I'm gonna lift up every other. So I'll just go over, under, and alternate this way with the first piece. And then, and just kind of make sure I'm still lining everything up, the next piece needs to do the opposite. So it's gonna go under the first one. So I'm just gonna pull out this piece here. And I now need to create a checkerboard pattern by weaving the opposite ones, like this. And I'm gonna kind of jam it up here pretty tight. I'm going up a little bit too high so I can bring it back down. And now I'm at my third one, and I need to pull that one out. So all the rest of my pieces are gonna stay under here. I'm gonna pull the third one out, and now I need to go the opposite again, so you can kind of check it and see which way you need to go. Usually my end pieces here are kind of like not doing the right thing until the very end, so they can tend to kind of slip out, but you can always fix that at the end. And I'm just gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna pull out one piece at a time, leave all the rest underneath here, and just create that opposite effect. If I see that my pieces are not coming down long enough, I could pull. So I'm just gonna pull my paper down, and then on the back too, that means they're doing the same thing. So I can kind of try to flatten this out a little bit. Another big technique I would say that I use is to hold that paper. You want very little space between these pieces. So I take my fingernails or my thumbs, and I'm trying to create a really tight, and I maybe even need to do that the other direction, where I'll just kind of grab on that paper and really tuck it in nice and tight. And you can do that at the end or as you go. But again, you still need to make sure, like if I get this done, it doesn't make a good 90-degree, I'm gonna end up needing to slide everything down. So I'll show you that here at the end too. Okay, so my basic weave is done. Now just to clean it up. So my paper is kind of curling up. I have some gaps. It's changing direction. What you're really trying to get to happen is these pieces to come like almost straight down. If this is kind of flaring out, you're gonna need to kind of tuck in and tighten. And you can see I'm kind of losing my tightness I have here. So that's where I'm gonna go in and just start to slide these pieces in and down, and like if this is sticking out too long, I maybe need to move a lot of this down. I kind of will pull and shift and slide and just really take control of that paper, and you gotta tell it where to go. So when I am done and have a good kind of clean line, last thing I'm going to want to do is tape the bottom. You will not need to tape this entire thing. Here I have some clear tape you can see on these corners. So I'm just going to tear off pieces about 4.5 inches long. And then I wouldn't just tape it as it is. So you can see it's kind of sliding out. So I'm going to tuck in, and I'm on this black table so I can really see where all of my kind of gap holes are. And I'm just going to bring it all together, make it as clean as possible here, flat as possible, and then just tape pretty close down here to these edges. I can just trim that extra off. I'll do the same thing over here. So if the pieces that are hanging over are bothering you, then you could go back and, maybe trim them up, or maybe I should have pulled that out a little bit more before I taped. If these pieces that are lifting up bother you, you could put maybe a dot of glue on those 4. You have 4 here and 4 over here that are not able to be glued or taped down. You don't want to take your tape up and over the edge because that just looks silly. So that would need to be glue that would hold that down there. So that's it. Name on the back, and that looks awesome.